A viewer in California who works as a real estate agent sent me an article with a mind-blowing take on the future of the US housing market. It argued that in the future, newly wealthy families will actually prefer to rent, a shift that could completely change the way wealth is accumulated. This has been a constant debate among our viewers. Some say that these old wooden houses will only lose you money in the long run, pointing out that even Warren Buffett doesn't speculate on physical real estate. But many of our longtime viewers still believe that renting is just working for your landlord. In my opinion, when it comes to the rent versus buy debate, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. The right choice depends entirely on where you live. In some places, buying is a trap. In others, renting is a massive financial loss. So, how should you make your real estate decisions in different regions? Before we begin, thank you for liking the video. Your support is my greatest motivation to keep creating content. Many of us have had this experience. The same words can mean completely different things depending on who says them. If a friend tells you, "Don't buy a house, the cash flow will be tight and your life will be stressful. Just rent," you might take it as good advice. But what if your real estate agent says it? Definitely don't buy a house. Look at my clients. They bought a few years ago and lost a fortune. The rich are all renting now. They're putting their money elsewhere. You should rent too. What would you think then? This is the thought that crossed my mind when I read that article. The author is the founder of a US real estate brokerage, and he's telling people not to buy. Isn't he just shooting himself in the foot? Does that make sense? Many people commented that it does make sense, that it's an insider's perspective, and that he's warning people of a coming crisis out of the goodness of his heart. Well, I believe that in most industries, including real estate, there is no such thing as conscience. Unless you're in a special profession like a doctor or a teacher, business decisions are about the bottom line. As someone in industrial development, I can tell you honestly that even environmental protection isn't always the top priority. So we have to look at this from an industry insider's perspective. When a real estate agent tells you not to buy a house, it's very likely because they've discovered a more profitable real estate model. Build to rent. These are communities of homes built exclusively for renting, not for selling. This model, borrowed from commercial real estate, aims to collect rent from you for a lifetime. This isn't just about capital being greedy. It's a model designed to adapt to the future needs of the housing market by solving many of the pain points of homeownership, skyrocketing property taxes, insurance, HOA fees, and the constant maintenance of an old decaying wooden house. This brings us to the latest question. What factors influence rent fluctuations, and how should that affect your decision to buy? Is the logic the same as for home prices? During my industrial project research on the East Coast, the first city I covered was Pittsburgh. After that trip, a viewer from Pittsburgh consulted with me about starting a short-term rental business there, catering to remote workers or digital nomads. I asked him a tough question about his competition. What about a super hot tech hub like Austin, Texas? They have a huge remote work scene. How do you plan to compete with them? He just laughed and said, "Our bubble in Pittsburgh has already burst. Their bubble in Austin is just getting started." While he didn't answer my question directly, he pointed to a harsh reality. Austin's real estate market is indeed in the middle of a bubble bursting. For example, its rental prices are leading the nation in declines. So why is a hot market like Austin seeing such a steep drop in rents? There are two main reasons. First, they simply built too many apartments in recent years. Second, Austin is the #1 city in the entire country for BTR expansion. This because the cost of homeownership in Texas is incredibly high. As we discussed last week, the property taxes are brutal and insurance costs are rising every year. For people who can't afford these costs, renting in a BTR community is a very attractive option. This created a huge demand and BTR developers rushed into Texas. At first, the development was irrational, with everyone trying to build as much as possible to collect rent. But once all these units were built, the market was flooded with supply. Now they've become rational again and are slashing rents. A lower monthly rent is better than a vacant unit for 6 months. So, in a market like Austin, where the cost of ownership is prohibitive and the rental supply is massive, buying a home can be a financial trap. Renting, on the other hand, offers more flexibility and lower costs. The new question is, will a high-cost state like California also go down the BTR path and crush its small landlords? Unlike Texas, California has very little BTR development. The rental market is dominated by small mom-and-pop landlords. So we have to look at which areas have a rising or falling percentage of investment properties. Let's look at the core areas in Northern and Southern California. In Northern California, the percentage of investment properties in Sacramento has decreased by 2%, but in Silicon Valley, it has increased by 10%. In Southern California, Los Angeles saw a 7% increase, but the inland area of Riverside saw a 1% decrease. San Diego saw a 2% increase. As we've discussed before, California's market is divided not just into north and south, but also coastal and inland. The coastal areas have a more pleasant climate and a higher concentration of industries, like Silicon Valley's tech sector and LA's diverse economy. In contrast, the inland areas are hotter and have lower home prices. During the last boom, a lot of small investors rushed into these inland areas. Now they're selling, causing inventory to rise and rents to soften. So in inland areas like Sacramento and Riverside, it's currently a buyer's market. You have more negotiating power. So if you're a landlord in California, especially in inland areas, please share your experience with rental prices. This confirms that you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach to the rent versus buy decision. In California's inland areas, investors are leaving, creating an opportunity for home buyers. But in the coastal areas, investors are still pouring in, making it harder for regular buyers to compete with all cash offers. In those areas, renting might be the more financially viable option, even though the rents are extremely high. Now, let's look at how to apply this analysis to your personal situation. A viewer from Atlanta, where both home prices and rents are falling, asked, who is better off just renting for the long term? I can't say who should rent for their entire life, but I can identify 3 types of people for whom renting is likely the better option for the next 5 to 10 years. First, people with short-term career plans. For example, if you've moved from Texas to California for a job but aren't sure you want to stay. I've consulted with several young couples in this exact situation. Often, one partner is not happy with the move. One husband felt that California was just a big village, even Silicon Valley, and he missed the urban energy of New York. Another wife missed her friends and cultural life back in Texas. For couples like these, I strongly advise against buying a home right away. Rent first, explore the state. Make sure you want to put down roots before taking on a massive mortgage. Second, people with unstable income. If you've just managed to scrape together a down payment, have you calculated the ongoing costs of homeownership? If you're a new entrepreneur or have a young family, the financial pressure of owning a home can be immense. You become a slave to 3 dependents: your spouse, your child, and your house. If your decision to buy is driven entirely by external factors, waiting for rates to drop, prices to fall, or insurance to get cheaper, I suggest you look at your internal motivation. Can renting solve your immediate needs? If it can, don't be in a rush to buy. Third, landlords who are fed up. A viewer from North Carolina, whose rental income and property value are both falling, asked if they should sell their property next spring. If you're a landlord, there are 3 factors to consider. First, your cash flow. If you're consistently losing money after covering your mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance, then selling is a reasonable option. Second, your long-term appreciation potential. Is the local economy growing? Is there a net influx of people? If the long-term fundamentals are strong, it might be worth holding on through a short-term dip. Third, your exit costs. Calculate your capital gains tax. How much money will you actually walk away with? A viewer in her 70s who owns May-Rennie rental properties, but whose children in California are not interested in them, asked for advice. Here's what I suggest for retirees in a similar situation. First, talk to a CPA about your tax strategy. Don't sell all your properties at once. Stagger the sales to manage the tax burden. Consider a 1031 exchange to roll the proceeds into a more passive investment, like a REIT. Second, if you're tired of managing the properties, hire a professional property manager. The cost is worth the peace of mind. Third, have a wealth management plan in place before you sell. Work with a financial advisor to create a diversified portfolio of bonds, ETFs, and other assets to ensure your money continues to work for you. And one last piece of advice for retirees: stay away from crypto. The stress isn't worth it. This whole discussion started with an article from a real estate brokerage founder who advised against buying a home. I don't see this as some dark conspiracy. I see it as a reflection of a changing market. The BTR model may become the preferred housing option in some cities in the future. The rent versus buy debate has no single correct answer. It forces us to ask a more fundamental question: what do we really want from a home? As an architect, I started my career designing homes. I loved it because I could imagine myself living in the spaces I created, feeling a sense of security and the happiness of family life. I felt I was helping people achieve that happiness. But a house shouldn't be a financial prison. If you're constantly stressed about the mortgage, the landlord, or the tenants, then the house becomes a nightmare. Life is too short to torture yourself like that. I welcome you to share your own experiences with renting and buying. What has your journey been like? What are your thoughts on the future of housing? Thank you for your likes and subscriptions. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next exciting share.